where people could live in comfort from the air conditioning from the water. This type of well is typical of Hindu architecture. The wall that surrounds the complex is very formidable, and one has to understand that if it were simply a question of defending a tomb, one would not have gone to such elaborate measures, perhaps, to have defended it. But a palace needs defending, and this wall is its main defense. Now, in the 17th century, when fortified walls were built, they were often built in this zigzag manner because artillery was already being used in warfare. And by creating this zigzag, one was able to put gun emplacements here and fire down on the enemy or across at the enemy. So that the straight wall with its crenellations on top, which are part of the Taj, would not have been built that way in the 17th century if it was defense that they were interested in. Surrounding the Taj are these 4 minarets, alleged minarets. But it's odd that you have in the first place 4 minarets. You only really need 1, although in the history of Muslim architecture there are 4, 2. But it's also stranger yet that there are an abundance of minarets around the main building, but the mosque itself has none. So there are no minarets around the mosque, and 4 around the main building. What you have here is a residence, which is a mirror image of the mosque on the opposite side of the main building. But now this is a strange anomaly in that these 2 buildings are built exactly alike, and yet for different purposes. One is said to be a mosque, and one is said to be a residence. Now I put it to you, and to any of the architects who are listening to this lecture, that for 2 buildings to have the same design for different purposes doesn't make much sense. It would make more sense if they had different design. So one of them is not what it's supposed to be, or both. But there are some magnificent views of the towers and buildings silhouetted against the sky. There's a second floor inside, which visitors rarely get to see because it's locked, and it's really been stripped of its ornament. There used to be a marble wainscot, which was probably used by Shah Jahan in his rework of the building. And here is the central atrium with its screen around the 2 cenotaphs. And here's a screen with embedded ceramic tiles and precious stones, semi-precious stones. But note here that on the top of the screen, you have this type of ceramic. You have the a bowl and a stream, and it's a washing what I consider, and I learned this from Oak, to be the lingam of the Shiva. So what you have here is the bowl, here is the milk pouring down, and here is the lingam on the screen. There are a total of 108 of these symbols all along the screen. 108 is a very important figure because it has to do with the precession of the equinoxes, which is another subject which is highly complex, but it has to do with the fact that the Earth wobbles on its axis, that the sun rises amongst the constellations at a different point during the year. After 26,000 years, it wanders, and comes back to its beginning. So that after 108, there are after 72 rather, and 72 plus 36 gives you the 108. This figure has been believed to be an important figure for the ancients in determining astronomy and predicting eclipses and in determining their future. So 108 is not a fortuitous number, it's important. And here is the Juno on the north side of the Taj. And part of the fantasy concerning the Taj is that, yes, here is the marble white Taj, but that was intended there'll be another built across the way, so there'll be one for Mumtaz and one for Shah Jahan. There's no evidence that this is the case. It's just delightful to believe. These entryways, in my view, are symbols of the lotus petal. That's where this form comes from. These are the mukarnas, or the multiple type of incised sculpted incense, which I believe derived from the Buddhist architecture. And sometimes in the corner of the archway, in the shoulder, we have this type of symbol, which I believe is a symbol of the trident of Shiva. And here it is again at a smaller scale. Here is the trident and set into a flower. And here is a 18th century Rajput painting showing Shiva with his consort, Parvati. But notice the symbolism here. Here is his trident. Notice on Shiva's head is this crescent. And notice too that here are the snakes or cobras that adorns his body. These are all symbols that are used in the Taj. A cross-section of the Taj shows a very complex building and was very difficult to build and time-consuming. Here is the dome, the bulbous dome, which, mind you, is a very difficult thing to build out of masonry. And here is some 75 feet of space between the interior dome and the exterior. And here is the river down below, and here are these huge foundations going down to bedrock to give the whole thing stability. So altogether there are about 7 levels. The idea that Shah Jahan, coming back from Burhanpur, where his wife died after her 14th delivery, that after a year and a half, he was already able to bury her on the site. It doesn't make any sense from an architectural point of view. It would have taken too long to have built all of this, to design it, to excavate it, and to eventually build it. And here's the pinnacle over here. The pinnacle is laid out flat in the terrace by the Taj, and it's 32 feet long, an exact duplicate of the actual pinnacle. It's made up of these water pots, a crescent, Shiva's crescent, a mango leaves, and a coconut. Go back. So that what has been alleged that this is a symbol of the Islamic crescent is probably not true. That the Islamic crescent is not shown this way. It's often on a diagonal like this.